Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sattology means science of truth, study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science or study of fake, lie, or imagination. Please do not use the word mythology for Vedic based cultures. And I'd say Vedic based because there are many people told me they all follow Veda. Yes, you can be a Brazilian follower of Veda or a Chilean follower of Veda. You're all part of Sanatana Dharma family, whether you don't even have to go to India sometimes. You can visit India and I'll promote the tourism to India, but you can follow wherever you live because in the next show I'll give you references of your own continent and their connection to Veda. I have very, very special guest, my most beloved friend, Muni, Rishi, Tapasvi, and scholar par excellence, and also an author. He has published 3 books. Go get those books from Amazon, since you're in the US. Let us welcome Shri Nilesh Oak.
नमस्कार आदित्य जी.
नीलेश जी, पहले तो हम लोग को बात करना पड़ेगा. We have to first say on why the American ignoramuses who pretend as politicians have to comment on India on some things which they do not understand, either on the knowledge side or on the practicality side, but they regularly engage in propaganda, according to you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the ignorant is also a correct word because they truly don't have the understanding of Indian civilization. This is not a new phenomenon, by the way, Aditya ji. This is going on for, you can think of 100+ years. Okay. Even before 1947, I have a book on American reaction to Gandhi, for example. And to some extent, you can understand it, which is to say they were very directionally supportive of India during this freedom struggle. But remember, it is for their own pure benefit. To the extent, don't forget how America separated from United Kingdom. Okay, that was that whole struggle. And now India was going through similar things to that extent. Okay, so that it doesn't appear like a contradiction, they were supporting India. Now, when the Second World War began and when Gandhi ji took a certain position, then suddenly the American viewpoint, it was not truly sudden, but now because America was also involved in the World War II from a specific point of view, now they were opposing Gandhi. So I'm just giving you as an example. But the ignorant part is, I mean, again, like, I don't know if you're referring to any specific recent happenings, which I do not keep track of. But now there are, the other American thing they will do. I know some of my friends' children from this area, they will get their bachelor's degree, master's degree, and now they are part of the American think tanks in Washington, D.C. area or otherwise. And what is their objective? Their objective is now to sell their propaganda, whatever they want to achieve, which somebody should read. Whoever is interested should read. There are series of books by Washington Post journalists, like ex-Washington Post journalists. And these are very old books. I mean, I have read them like 20 years ago, for example. I'm not getting the name right now. How systematically, one after another, America destroyed Latin American countries. You can also see the books by some other authors, how systematically they destroyed one country after another. Okay, in the Asian rim, for example, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Korea, South Korea, it just goes on and on. The two countries, relatively speaking, and Japan to an extent, although they tried a lot in Japan to destroy it, the two countries that they couldn't quite do it, although they have done significant damage, especially in India, is India and China and Japan, I would say. And so that's like a last fort that they haven't conquered. So this is one idea. Also, the tremendous market, because everything here they think in terms of money, money, money. So the tremendous market that is there, and they want to have a intervening power. And that is why all this, I don't know even specific things if you're referring to, all that nonsense that gets spouted out, and they will never take time to truly understand India on the India's terms. Although I feel that it will benefit them in a true humanistic sense, it will benefit them, but that's not what they want to do. So they will talk about the human what you call human rights records, not seeing what is under their feet right here.
That's right. That's right. So we can start with the presentation. Today we are
Okay.
talking the Mercury phenomena and the Mercury evidence because I just did the Mercury Shanti.
Well, maybe that's why. But again, for the benefit of our viewers, we are doing now last few episodes going through detailed evidence of the Mahabharata text. Of course, this is relevant for the Mahabharat dating, understanding Mahabharat. But the reason I'm discussing is not at all limited to Mahabharat or Mahabharat dating. Through the think of this as an intuition engine, intuition tool, I want to share with people, in a way, educate them how a research is done, okay, how the puzzle is solved. And anyone who wants to do original research, do they have a puzzle? Do they have an unsolved problem? Because Aditya, let me start sharing. The challenge is many, and this has not stopped, by the way. Almost it's like at times very irritating, although pleasing, because just like Prime Minister Modi ji says, like many people approach him, and then he says, well, because unko bhi vishwas hai, koi karega to yahi aadmi karega. Possibly the same way, like people feel like, if in an Indian civilizational context, Indian civilizational research, antiquity research, dating research, if there is anyone who can do it, it is Nilesh Oak. I think it's their confidence. However, I will also tell you it becomes kind of irritating because of this reason. They have an extremely naive idea about how research is done. My point is, the reason I'm discussing this research of Mahabharata, and we will do the same thing for Ramayana, in such a nitty-gritty detail, to teach people how research is done. It is not a careless and casual affair at all. Just to backtrack and give you a background again, we started with the Arundhati Vasishtha observation. Why I'm discussing Arundhati Vasishtha and Bhishma Nirvana every single time when I'm giving talk on Mahabharata? Because people must understand the role of a crucial evidence and a crucial experiment. Now, what is that? With Arundhati, why it is a crucial experiment, why it is a crucial evidence? Because in our times, that is not the case what Vyasadeva is describing at the time of Mahabharata war. Not only that, all the astronomers of last, say, 300 years simply thought it impossible in the very order of nature, astronomy speak. Aditya, what to speak of astronomers of last 200 years? Even current astronomers, okay, who have published in peer-reviewed journals that people are so cocky about, and there are many who have PhDs in astronomy and physics and in American academia. When they come across my research, they will either change the goalpost, they will talk something totally rubbish. I mean, one has to wonder what school of astronomy they go to, or what kind of learning they had. And I'm just so curious, what did they do PhD on? I mean, their understanding of the basic astronomy is so worrisome. I wonder what they are teaching to their students. It is that bad. Now, in this context, when you look at the latest astronomy data, as I did beginning with 1995 until 2009, or as Siddhartha Chabraji did around 2019, about 10 years after my work. This is a marvel. This is a miracle, guys. Okay, this is a crucial evidence, but this is also a crucial experiment. It says Mahabharat war is simply not possible in last 6,500 years. Period. No ifs, no buts. Period. Nothing is possible. Now, people will say this is only one evidence out of 300 plus evidence, astronomy evidence of Mahabharata text. Yeah, absolutely. But the importance of any given single piece of evidence is not identical to another single piece of evidence, because some evidence is more testable. And in science, we call this a degree of testability, okay, and a degree of accuracy, degree of corroborability. Okay, corroborability, long word. Okay, what it contributes in corroborating a certain theory, or what it contributes in corroborating a certain claim, and even more important, what it contributes in falsifying certain claims, is what decides the crucial nature of that particular observation. And that's what Arundhati Vasishta is. That's why when we are doing it, I always start with that. Then the next one is a Bhishma Nirvana. Those people who did not understand Arundhati Vasishta observation or my demystification of it and still don't understand, now, just for fun, I showed them the Bhishma Nirvana evidence, and now they show their ignorance more, like what you said about the American diplomats, talking utter nonsense about India, without bothering to actually understand what India is or what Indian civilization is, Indian psyche is. It's the same thing here. Without bothering to read Mahabharata text, without bothering to understand the context, without bothering to realize that it is a jigsaw puzzle. Grantham Granthi Tada Chakre Munir Gudam Kutuhalat. If you're trying to do it, you're going to create more nonsense. Okay. And yeah, that you can see in the social media, that you can see people writing blogs, people giving lectures, and this is all good, by the way. Especially when they write blogs, but more so when they give lectures. I love it, Adityaji. You get many individuals on your show, but Sangam Talks, Jaipur Dialogues, and all the platforms. Why it is important? Because otherwise, the kind of utter nonsense they speak, if I say to somebody, if I say to our audience that this so and so person, and I don't take names for that reason anyways, because it's not about them, it's about the stupidity they are propounding. I say, this person said such a thing, or some Mahabharata researcher said such and such thing. People would hardly believe. Yesterday, I put a tweet on Twitter, and people say, what kind of nonsense is this? I said, yeah, that's the nonsense that has been fed to us for the last 50 plus years. In broad daylight, the fraud is happening, and no serious person, other than the few people like you and me, is willing to even talk about it. No academics, no educators, okay, no one in politics is talking about it. They are using the still 30 years old notes. And that's why I bring this up. This is fresh knowledge, fresh knowledge meaning based on the Vyasa's evidence, but with a absolutely objective thinking to this evidence. So Bhishma Nirvana, in fact, the story of Bhishma Nirvana, as you may know, is I tell people, these are I wrote a whole book on Bhishma Nirvana, 300 pages. Why did I write that book? Not yesterday, a couple of weeks ago, someone close to you on the West Coast, and I have met him and good acquaintance now. He just recently finished reading my Bhishma Nirvana book, and he called me, and he also wrote a note, which I posted on the Twitter and possibly in Facebook. He said, just kudos to you. And he was impressed that in the whole Bhishma Nirvana book, I didn't talk about the Arundhati Vasishta evidence. And even then I showed that just purely using Bhishma Nirvana evidence, still what can we say is that Mahabharat war did not happen in the last 6,500 years. It happened before that. And it happened between 4700 BC, 7000 BC. This is the crucial evidence. These are crucial experiments. Therefore, I repeat them. And this is a lesson for Indic researchers who want to do original research. Always begin with a problem that is not being solved, unsolved problem by any other existing theories. Then only there is a point of doing a research. What is the point of just collecting information and just adding your speculation? There is no point to it. There has to be a certain objective why you're doing it, right? So it gives you a 1600-year period, 5000 through say like 6700 BC for the year of Mahabharat war. And then what we are discussing in this specific series, now it must be like easily 7+ episodes, is that purely looking at the planetary evidence, which is to say, if we, now we should not, and we have no reason to, nor it is scientifically correct to say that, oh, please ignore Arundhati Vasishta, please ignore Bhishma Nirvana evidence. That is not correct. But just to make people understand how powerful the planetary evidence is, even as a hypothetical thinking, if you put aside Arundhati Vasishta observation and its implication for the year of Mahabharat war, for a minute, as a hypothetical scenario, if you put aside the Bhishma Nirvana evidence and its implication for the year of Mahabharat war, which is what? Both are giving that middle 1600-year period, 5000 to 7000 BCE, about 2000 years. Purely looking at the planetary evidence, and when you solve this 50 plus specific descriptions of graha, that means 5 visible planets, sun, moon, and as we looked into our previous episode, like 7 planets, right? 7 graha doing something in the context of the sun or in the context of the moon, which requires that you also take into account Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. How fascinating, how beautiful, which leads to additional questions of higher complexity about the telescopic abilities of Indians more than 7,500 years ago. Okay, so we already discussed that. The reason what I'm showing you this is, now many Mahabharata researchers, majority, 99+%, they do not begin with the Mahabharata evidence. They begin with some date in their mind based on the tradition, based on some dogmatic assumption, based on some trust in some previous researcher who had speculated or suggested a date. Then they start looking for evidence wherever they can find. So sometimes they find something in tradition, they want to hang on to tight, like, the man who is drowning in the water, hanging on to a stick, floating stick, that kind of thing. And then when they look at works like such as mine, or say of Dr. P.V. Vartak, or of Bharat Ratna Pava Kane, or S.B. Dikshit, Lele Shastri, they find some evidence which they think it might fit locally, okay, to their claim date. They will try to say, yeah, there is some Mahabharata evidence which also fits mine. That's why I'm showing you these maps, the map of a US and map of India. I have selected 2 states, one of a Indian state called Madhya Pradesh, and then state of Arizona. Now, if you don't look at all the evidence in this context, that would mean all the states maps and their boundaries for Indian states, and also the same thing in United States. Only when you have all the evidence and try to fit, then only people will realize whether the way they are solving this jigsaw puzzle, whether they are successful or not. But if you randomly just take some piece of evidence, even like on a US map, I'm showing Madhya Pradesh and Arizona. Does it fit? Yeah, it appears like it fits just fine, because we have not brought the evidence of all the states. And in Indian map, I'm showing Madhya Pradesh and Arizona. Yeah, they both fit. But if we bring all the evidence, which is to say all the states of India, the Arizona would need to be removed. And same thing with the United States map. The Madhya Pradesh will need to be removed. Okay, so this is a jigsaw puzzle. Whether somebody successfully solved it or not, if we want to decide it, we have to look at all the evidence, all the relevant evidence. And you know what? Mahabharata text, Mahabharata Grantha is 7,500 years old. Ramayana is more than 14,000 years old. Over time, when people are copying things, okay, people are making multiple copies. Sometimes the word is not visible, the word is lost on the palm leaves and so on. Then people are trying to fill it. People also remember this by heart. So like, Aditya ji, you and me can relate to that. Many times we'll quote a verse in Bhagavad Gita or even any other text. And sometimes we actually, the way we say it, we will make a mistake. The way we remember it over a period of time, because we are just reciting it to remember, we may make a mistake. We might change the word, change the accent, the dirgha matra, rasva matra, visarga, and so on. That creates errors. Similar errors can pop into all our ancient Indian narratives. So what will happen is, It's the simple metaphor I'll give you for our viewers is this. Imagine, I mean, if you as a child, or if you are like grown up and you have children now, imagine you bring them a jigsaw puzzle, okay, some puzzle with the pieces, and over a period of time a child loses a piece, okay, a couple of pieces. Now what happens is that whole picture, whole jigsaw puzzle cannot be solved, but the kids can still play with it. They can solve most of it, and couple of states, if they're doing the United States map or India map, couple of states might be missing, but you can just still know what those states are from that missing shape, because everything else is there. My point is, when you look at the evidence from ancient text, I mean, if your theory is right, most of the evidence will fit, but because of the kind of errors that I suggested, there may be some evidence that will not fit. We should not hide that evidence. We should point out that evidence, and as a good researcher, we should note it down. And Aditya, that's what I say. Each of my book has a chapter called conflicting observations. I take those observations which do not fit, like just, for example, in the Indian map, it will be the state of Arizona. Like suddenly a state of Arizona piece also fits into that box. Somebody put that into the box and it's not fitting. Okay, all right. It must have come from the other jigsaw puzzle, or somebody's misunderstanding of it. And Madhya Pradesh will not fit into United States map. So you can remove it, but mention it. Hey, this doesn't fit. Okay. And then you know what? Somebody in United States, I mean, United States, I don't know if you know that, like many, these all funny research studies come all the time. Like when the Iraq war was happening, and what 50% of the American kids could not show where is Iraq on the map. many American kids could not show their own state on the map, and that can happen everywhere. I'm not saying it's related to America, but Madhya Pradesh, somebody is going to say, oh, why? I don't know. I mean, I didn't realize there was a Madhya Pradesh state in America or something, or it may not match. That's perfectly fine. It's a very acceptable scenario in our life with our children, with a jigsaw puzzle. What to speak of a jigsaw puzzle that is there for 7,500 years, namely the Mahabharat, or for more than 14,000 years, namely the Ramayana. Okay, so let's go and look at something like this. So now if you have all the states like Madhya Pradesh, those people who are not familiar with India, that Madhya Pradesh state that I was showing fits right here. Okay. Or the Jammu and Kashmir here. Now that is, split into the three-way for effective administration. And you can see multiple states, many states. The states that I learned, now are split into smaller for effective administration. You can see those. Same thing with America. You can see the states here. And of course, don't forget Hawaii and Alaska and the Puerto Rico. The Puerto Rico, by the way, is another history. Alaska, not so much, but Hawaii is also another history. I would say a dark page in American history, how America controlled Puerto Rico, but also how America controlled Hawaii. And these histories are out there, okay, for those who want to learn about it. Okay, now I want to quickly show you something that I have already discussed, which is to say the Pida aspect. Saturn giving Pida to Rohini, afflicting, torturing Nakshatra Rohini, number 28 here in this map. And Saturn was near Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni, in the region of Uttara Falguni, Hasta and Chitra during the time of Mahabharat war, 55-61 BC. Jupiter, which was in the region of Jeshta through Shravana. Okay, Jupiter moves much faster than Saturn. Takes 12 years to complete a cycle, whereas Saturn would take 30 years to complete a cycle. Almost 2.5 times faster. Jupiter is faster than Saturn. So within that 2-year period, plus minus 1 year period, Jupiter would move from Jeshta to Shravana. And those descriptions are there in the Mahabharata text for Jupiter, for Saturn. Okay, Saturn in the context of Uttara Falguni, but Saturn in the context of a Chitra. Jupiter description is also there in the context of a Jeshta. It's also there in the context of a Shravana. Okay. But now Jupiter, Saturn, and Sun, Moon together, Sun together meaning just Sun and Moon, they all are described afflicting, torturing, or Sanskrit word Pida to Rohini, giving Pida to Rohini. And I have already discussed that. But what I wanted to show you is the astronomy simulation, and then we'll quickly talk Mercury, and we will stop and do some additional discussion. I have already explained that, so I'll not repeat it. But the way I could solve this puzzle is by taking this reference, Rohini Pidayatteva Ubhaucha Shashi Bhaskaro. That Rohini is being given Pida by both Shashi and Bhaskar, moon and the sun. And when the moon and sun were together on the first day of the Mahabharat war, I mean, it comes in the third chapter, this statement, okay, just before the Mahabharat war begins. Actually, right there, it's the day of Amavasya, you can say, that's the description. And that is very useful because the position of the sun is very clear. It was near that Jeshta Mula, Purva Ashada Nakshatra. And moon is also there because of Amavasya. So now we understand, so that's what the Pida means. But you know what? That is our understanding. That is my interpretation. I need to figure out a way if that interpretation is valid. Fortunately, Mahabharata text gives two additional opportunities. One is that Saturn, it says, is also afflicting Rohini. Prajapatyam hi nakshatram grahastikshno mahadyuti shanaishchara pidayati pidayan pranikodikam. And again it says, Rohini pidayan nesha stito raja shanaishchara. And then we have Jupiter doing this to Rohini in a very beautiful description. When Karna finally falls down, is killed by Arjuna on the 17th day of the war. And after that, it says, I'll just read the second line because that's the relevant one. Bruhaspati Rohini Samprapidya Pidya Babhuva Chandrarka Samana Varna. The way, by appearing like a moon and sun together, the way moon and sun were afflicting Rohini, Jupiter also started afflicting Rohini on the 17th day of the war. So I'm just showing you this scenario, how they were doing it. What is the consistency? They are in the opposite end of the sky. Okay, that's the Pida. Okay, so there is one alternate reading that you will find in the Mahabharata. Okay, Rohini Pidayannesha Stito Rajesh Shanaschara. But you also get one reading which is so beautiful. Okay, Akashe Rohini Bhettum. Okay, Saturn was doing a bheda of a Rohini in the sky. That bheda is also understood in the sense of bheda or yuddha. Those are the words used for that. They're in the opposite end of the sky. Okay, and that's what I'm going to show you from astronomy simulations. So this is the first day of the Mahabharat war, October 16, 5561 BCE, more than 7,500 years ago, or to be precise, 7,583 years ago. At the sunset, sun and moon are on the horizon. And if you see, on the opposite side is, or the opposite end of the sky is this nakshatra Rohini. So that is that sun and moon doing Pida to Rohini. Now we have a chance to test it. Is this consistent? Now it also describes Saturn, okay, doing Pida to Rohini. Well, look at this. This is Saturn here. And if you come to the opposite end of the sky, by the way, this green line is the horizon. So they both are above the horizon here. They have to be. They should be above horizon at the same time to be seen by an observer in Kurukshetra, okay, at that time. So Saturn is the at one side, and Nakshatra Rohini is in the opposite side. When, I mean, I've taken the shot of October 16, 5561 BC, but remember, Rohini is not going anywhere. Rohini is fixed as a nakshatra, and Saturn is also not going to move a lot. Saturn, literally for the plus minus 1 year around Mahabharata war, Saturn was between, say, this is Hasta, this is Chitra, and if you would have gone up here, this is Uttara Falguni. So it was in this area, in the area of these three nakshatra, between two nakshatra space really. Okay, so that's the second Pida. And the third one is what? Now this is beautiful. On the 17th day of the war, the Mahabharata description says Jupiter was giving Pida to Rohini, similar to the sun and moon were giving Pida to Rohini. Now sun and moon were giving Pida to Rohini on the first day of the war. It was the day of Amavasya and being at the opposite end. Now, on the 17th day of the war, this is the description, by the way, after the sunset. Therefore, I have shown sun just at the horizon, just below the horizon. Once that happened, look at this position of Jupiter. Jupiter is here. And if you come across the sky, the opposite end, you are seeing Rohini here. That is that Pida, the consistent one I have already discussed, but I just wanted to show you the visual. What does that mean? And now quickly, I want to discuss so far, if you notice, we discussed Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, even Venus, when we talked about the retrograde motion of Venus, right? So Shukram Proshtapade Purve Samaruya Vishampate Uttare tu Parikramya Sahita Pratyudikshite. But so far, at least in this particular series, we have not talked about Mercury. And there is a description of a Tiryak motion of Mercury. I want to make it as simple as I can. Okay. The Tiryak means, like, people can go to Sanskrit English dictionary and look at the meanings. It means obliques. It will give you many different meanings for Tiryak. Okay. But one thing is very important. Let's start with the Mahabharata evidence itself. This evidence, Adityaji, is also on the 17th day of the war. Karna has been killed by Arjun. Then soon sunset happens. And we just saw the observation of Jupiter giving Pida to Rohini. Okay. I will just for a second, I'll go back to show you this. Okay. So they look at this Jupiter. Jupiter is giving Pida to Rohini. Again, the Bhettum, Bheda or Yuddha at the opposite ends of the sky. So it's doing that. And notice the position of a Mercury. Okay. So sun is here, Jupiter is here, and Mercury. So once the sun sets, you will able to still see Jupiter and you will able to see Mercury. Now, this is very important, guys, very important. No other Mahabharata researcher will able to show this at all. There are 130 plus claims out there, and not a single researcher will dare show the Mercury on the horizon, above horizon, after sunset on the 17th day of the war. This is again, Adityaji, through your channel, open challenge to all the Mahabharata researchers with those 130 plus claims. But that's exactly what this Tiryak motion of Mercury is, and that's what exactly Mahabharata text is saying. What does Karna Parva says? Hate karne sarito na prasannu, jagam chastam savita divakaraha, jagam cha astam savita divakaraha. Okay, so they're like, this is again, remember, poetic descriptions. Okay, so the rivers are not happy, right? The day kind of is not feeling, and it's a sad atmosphere, right? The day, astam savita divakara, savita here is a sun, sorry, divakara, so like, yeah, it's now gone, asta. Okay, sunset. And so therefore I'm showing this on the horizon. This is these are the pictures done by my good friend from West Bengal. He did it a few years ago, and now he has disappeared on the Twitter, apparently, and I cannot track him down, but did some wonderful pictures, using astronomy software. Grahascha Tiryag Jwalanarka Varna. Okay, so that Tiryag word is important. So this planet with a fiery color. Now remember, both Venus and Mercury always look fiery because they are very close to the sun as seen from the Earth. And by the way, Jupiter and Saturn will also look bright, and Mars if they are in a retrograde. We have done that. So Tiryag is like an oblique, is like a horizontal. You'll see many meanings for it. So I don't want to go into that. Just for that reason, it can be a long lecture otherwise. And still we will be sort of unsettled, because people will just argue on something that's irrelevant. But its oblique is one meaning of it. Horizontal kind of is another meaning. The point is, very important point, after sunset on the 17th day of the war, once the Karna was killed by Arjun and then there was a sunset, we saw Jupiter doing Pida to Rohini. But the last second reference on that day, Somasya Putro Abhyudaya Tiryak. So you see the word Tiryak here, and there is a Tiryak word here. Again, it means directionally similar, like oblique and horizontal and so on. Keep this last line very important. Sunset has happened, and Somasya Putro Abhyudaya. Abhyudaya, we say, like prosperity, rise. In this case, rising. Somasya Putra. Who is the Putra of a Soma? In Indian astronomy, that is Mercury. There is no There should not be a question, a doubt in anybody's mind. If there is a doubt, they should stop reading Mahabharata. They should go and study astronomy first before they are convinced about it. Somasya putro abhidaya tiryak. So the putra of Soma, Somaputra, which is Mercury, is rising in a weird fashion. So Tiryak is like oblique, horizontal. You can think in a weird fashion. It's rising in a weird fashion. Why? What is that aspect of rising in a weird fashion? That's what we are going to talk about. Now, usually, if you think of something rising in an astronomy sense, what is happening? The things are rising from the east direction. Usually everything is going to rise from east direction or northeast or southeast direction, because Earth is going from west to east. Something interesting that is happening with the case of Mercury, as seen from the Earth at Kurukshetra, let's say, at the western horizon. So this is the picture that I'm giving you of the 17th day. This is November 1st, 5561 BCE. Okay, this is the 17th day of the war at the sunset. Notice the position of a Mercury. Notice the position of Jupiter, like for relative positions. Notice the star Nunki. Okay, this is what? This is like that area of a Mula Nakshatra, Purvashada, Uttarashada. Okay, that area is here. But just remember Nunki, right? As for relative position. Notice the relative position of the sun. Now what happens? Unless they are in a retrograde, Jupiter will be always going in this direction. Like, I don't mean the diurnal motion, but a net motion against the background nakshatra is always in the eastward direction, unless they are in a retrograde. Okay. Mercury, of course, is going to go 88 days, going to complete a circle around the sun. So keep this in mind. Somasya putro abhidaya tiryak. It is rising. The Mercury is rising in a weird fashion. It's a poetic concept, but now we'll see how realistic it is and how poetic it is. That's why you have to understand the poetry. Hate karne sarito na prasanno. Okay, the whole atmosphere after Karna is gone is sort of a very sad, depressing. That's what it is describing. Okay, so look at the position of Mercury. Okay, from the horizon on the 17th day, it's like farthest from the sun. Notice that farthest from the sun, Jupiter is in between, and so on. Now what I'm going to do is, remember what Vyasadeva is saying. Vyasadeva is observing the sky day and night, at the sunrise, at the sunset, through the night, and of course even during the day, throughout. He is doing this for a year plus, and maybe even longer, okay, before the Mahabharat war happened, because the war was on the horizon there. Again, poetically speaking, the 13 years were getting completed, and Vyasadeva, but everyone knew that Duryodhana is not going to listen. So the war is like inevitable. Many people knew that. Okay, so he's noticing all these signs, and he tells Dhritarashtra he's going to document all this so that people will able to know this history, even long time after this occurs. Now we know 7,500 years ago. And he's saying that to Dhritarashtra, and he's putting this with Bhagwan Ganesh as a puzzle. Grantham Granthi Tada Chakre Munir Gudam Kutuala. So let's look at this Somasya Putro Abhyudaya Tirya. So this Mercury is rising in a weird fashion. What is that rising? So for example, on the 17th day, if a person in Kurukshetra would have seen on the western side, western horizon, after the sun was set, right after this, he would have seen Jupiter near the horizon, and above that, meaning away from the horizon, Mercury. That's what the person would have seen on the 17th day. Now, to make you understand this Abhyudaya Tiryak, the weird rising of a Mercury, I'm going to show you some screenshots right from day 1 of the Mahabharat war to the 17th day of the Mahabharat war. So remember what I showed. So Mercury is the farthest from the horizon, western horizon, after sunset. Now this is the first day of the Mahabharat war. What was the scenario that day? The sun was here, setting here. Okay, this was near Nakshatra Mula and near Nakshatra Purva Ashada, between that. Then we have this Uttarashada area, you can say. Okay, so just think of this Nunki. Forget Uttarashada, Nunki as a reference. And first day, where is Mercury? So when the sun set on the first day of the war, barely a observer at Kurukshetra on the first day of the Mahabharat war would have seen Mercury at the horizon, just sunset. And yeah, there was a Mercury for a few minutes or so. And again, Mercury also set. And they would have also seen Jupiter. Now let's fast forward to, let's say, day 22. I mean, I could have done this for every day. I was asking this, my young friend, 18 years old, by the way, Aditya, and he was doing it on his phone, using the software. I asked him, give me few days short. So he gave me October 22, which is what? Few days. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 7 days after the war had begun. And you can notice, and he might have done it because now you can see the difference. First day, Mercury is to the west of Nunki, okay, between the sun and the Nunki. Now, sorry, forgive me. Now it is the Nunki is between Mercury and the sun. So Mercury is rising against the horizon, but it's rising in a weird direction. Why? Because this is not at the sunrise, this is at the sunset. So sunset happens and you see Mercury rising further up in the sky. Now, this is not a new phenomenon, but again, remember, in the context of a Mahabharata, it's put in a poetic way. The most important point is, and this even a simple point, no other Mahabharata researcher out of 130 plus different claims will able to show. The simple requirement of Adityaji of this is Jagam Chastam Savita Divakara. After the sunset, one has to show Mercury above horizon on the 17th day of the Mahabharat war, whichever year they might be claiming and whichever timeline they may be claiming. But for the 17th day, they have to show that Mercury was east of the sun and it could be seen on the horizon. No Mahabharata research can do that. And if there is some remote Mahabharata researchers, by a random coincidence, such a situation exists, that researcher will dare not talk about this evidence. And this is something we will discuss. Why? Even when for some out of 130 dates, there might be, say, 2 or 3 dates for which on the 17th day of the war, according to their timeline, they may able to show Mercury to the east of the sun and therefore on the horizon, above horizon, after sunset on the 17th day of the war. And I am saying still they will keep their mouth shut. They will not discuss this evidence. Do you know why? Because that opens a can of worm that they cannot handle. As soon as they do this, they have to discuss. I mean, otherwise also they have to discuss. But they're taking advantage of the ignorance of the common people, common Indians. Nobody's asking them questions. Everyone is just clapping after their lecture. So they will not discuss this because it opens the can of worms with at least 50 worms, which is 50 specific descriptions of the planet from the Mahabharata text. And even if somebody can show, oh, Nilesh, what are you saying? Even for my date, the Mercury can be shown on the western horizon after sunsets. I would say, thank you very much. That's great. So at least we agree on something. Now let's go to the next next planetary evidence. And they will again run away. Absolutely, they will run away. This is the beauty of and the greatness of the astronomy evidence from the Mahabharata text. Somasya putro abhidayatiriya. Okay, so first day of the Mahabharata war, Mercury is very close to the sun, okay, and not far from the horizon after the sunset. Almost is going to set with the sun. Now we fast forward to 7 days, 22nd of October. Now you see Mercury Jupiter is also going eastward. Even sun is going eastward by about 1 degree every day. So if you notice now, look how far the distance between Nunki and the sun. But sun is also going 1 degree every day, right? So 7 days, he went 7 degree approximately towards Nunki. So notice what is happening. The Mercury is rising against the western horizon the fastest at the time of the Mahabharat war. And that is described as Somasya Putro Abhidaya Tiryak. Okay, so Mercury is there. Now we go fast forward to 7th day of the Mahabharat war, October 22nd. Notice what Mercury has done. It has crossed Nunki and it's getting closer towards Jupiter. Let's go forward to to October 28th. So that's 22nd, 23rd, 23rd, 24th, 25, 26, 27, 28, like another 6 days. First 7 days jump, another 6 days jump. Okay, October 28th. What do we see? And again, I think you must have taken those shots because there was something specific about it. Now, the sun has caught up with Nunki, because remember, sun is going 1 degree every day. So now 28, which is what? 16, 28, you can do the math, like 13 days. So sun has moved through 13 degrees. Jupiter has also moved through some, maybe small distance. But look what Mercury has done. It has moved significantly away from the sun and away from the horizon. Okay, that is what that Tiryak rising, Abhyudaya of a Mercury. And let's come to the 17th day of the war, for which Mahabharata has given the reference. And what is the reference? Now, Somasya Putro Abhyudaya Tiryak. Now it has risen, Abhyudaya, okay, has so much in this weird fashion that it has gone beyond Jupiter now. Okay, it is that much far away from the horizon. And I think I'm going to stop there. So that is the Tiryak rising of Mercury described in the Mahabharata text on the 17th day of the war. And as I said, Aditya ji, see, these are like poison pills. Like in the Bhishma Nirvana book, I have a subtitle. It says Astronomy Poison Pills. What does that mean? Like somebody, like, the poison pills in the corporate world, right? There will be conditions in that such a thing that a forced takeover of a business becomes difficult or impossible. So as I said, somebody will able to show Mercury for their date on the 17th day after sunset. And they say, Nilesh, what were you saying? On that talk with Aditya ji, you were saying no other Mahabharata researchers can show it. Sometimes I put this as a sweet poison pill there, like the way we put for ants, it's sweetly coated. So I'm hoping somebody will take the bet, like a fishing. Somebody takes the bet and says, yeah, actually, I can show that. I said, thank you very much. We are on the same page. Now let's go to the next piece of as planetary descriptions. And they will run away. I can tell you that. Back to you.
Nirji, when I was traveling in India this time, and I got a chance to meet many people, many Hindu scholars, and you know my nature that personally, when people meet me, I do not cut them off. And one common thing was, everybody, and these are the leading people, these are not small people. Hindus have so many scriptures, which scriptures to teach, and why we have to teach Gita. And these are the Hindu leaders. These are not small people. They are the Hindu leaders. Why Gita to be taught? But Gita should be taught as a philosophy, not as a something religious. I said, obviously it is not religious. We are not believe in religion.
Correct.
We believe in dharma. And this is so rampant. And the biggest poison pill will be to them is to show them that one small Gita of 745 shloka, actually 745, but 700 are available to us, is enough for the entire culture in one format. No other book has that quality.
Correct.
You have Uddhav Gita, which deals specifically. You have Gita spoken like in multiple places. Kapila Muni is speaking Devahuti with the Sankhya philosophy.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita spoken by Krishna is the only one which includes all the yoga together. Everyone.
Yeah.
What is your view on that poison pill for them? What is poison pill for them?
Okay. Well, I will tell you the poison pill from the area where I have expertise. I would say even Bhagavad Gita is sufficient for Mahabharata dating.
That's right.
Okay. For example, Nakshatrana Maham Shashi, and this is a contribution of your other guest Rupa Bhattiji, by the way. Nakshatrana Maham Shashi, and I will tell you my contribution is Masanam Margashirshoyam Rutunam Kusumakara. Just this line also takes you to 8,000 years ago. Period.
That's right. That's right.
These are poison pills.
Good point. Good point. Thank you all the viewers for watching. I know Nilesh has to go and you are waiting for more sauce, but we'll give you next time. Other than memes, this show has all the spices people look for.
Yes, very good. And thank you for all the comments that people keep on posting. That's really good. And I get independent comments too. I'm sure Aditya ji, you get it during the program. but after the program to
What we'll do is we'll also do a comment review section. We'll start from next time.
Sure. We
So
should do
then
that.
we'll do
Take
that.
some selected comments
Selected comments.
and then we can respond to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
One
do
of
that.
the Sunday shows we can do live and we can show them.
Okay. Let's do that.
All right. Thank you.
Namaskar.